welcome to another CRaFTi Experiments video. So today's one doesn't look very interesting from what you can see on the screen, but I just thought I would run through lots of different papers that you can use on your Gelli plate. So I don't think there's really anything you can't use, other than the only thing I've heard of is photo paper. Never put photo paper onto your Gelli plate. I've heard some people have success if like the whole plate is covered with paint and then you're putting it on and pulling it off, but if the photo paper touches a bare area of your Gelli plate, apparently there's some kind of chemical within photo paper, and whatever the oily stuff is within a Gelli plate, they just permanently fuse together apparently. So I would definitely steer clear of photo paper, but any of the items that I'm going to show you now are safe. I haven't actually tried all of them myself, but I have brought them so that throughout all of these experiments we will be playing around with them. This video is probably going to be a bit of a quicker video. I do definitely want to play with the last item that is in this stack of papers, and I might play with another couple of the others as well, but the previous two videos have been very long, so I thought maybe I'll just do a quicker video this week, just to sort of show different papers, perhaps ones that you haven't thought of before, or just that you've never even heard of before even as well. So first paper, the most obvious one, this one is just cheap printer paper, literally like 80 or 90 GSM, really cheap printer paper. Buy it in a pack of 250 sheets, you know, really cheap, inexpensive printer paper, which is brilliant when you are beginning, and it's also pretty good for if you want to use your prints for collage and things like that, because it's nice and lightweight. It's not going to be too bulky when you tear it into pieces and stick it onto things, so it's also quite nice for that as well. So just normal printer paper. This is a slightly more high quality printer paper. It feels like slightly satin sort of finish to it, so if you want to go for something a little bit better quality, then you can go for a slightly better GSM printer paper as well. This is one that you probably wouldn't have thought of to use, but I saved all of my instructions, I guess, for all of my IKEA furniture. I love building IKEA furniture. I've built pretty much everything in my house, and it's almost completely full of IKEA stuff. But I just thought, you know, in my art journaling, I would love to have a Gelli printed photo or picture of my sofa or my armchair, or these funny little people here. You could do some kind of like funny comic in your art journal or something, making up your own speech bubbles for what they're saying. But yeah, I just thought, I mean, I don't know if this is very interesting, showing you how to put the sofa together, but they could even just be your scrap papers as well, you know, it can just be something that you've saved. But personally, I kind of think if I tried to put a cool pattern over the top of this, I think it would look quite cool within an art journal as well. Whether I make an entire page of this just into a page of an art journal that I've stapled together, or whether you use it as like collagey bits or to die cut bits and pieces out of as well. I just thought it's another fun, different thing. I actually have a whole drawer full of them, and I've still not properly used one of them for art journaling yet, so hopefully I will get round to doing that. Then the next thing, both of these are packaging from parcels that you've gotten that you may get tissue paper in them. Sometimes it's like scrunched up, sometimes it might be round a mug or something like that, but you often get the white tissue paper. However, recently I found, I can't remember what it was, but something came with craft tissue paper, and you can also buy craft tissue paper, and I have bought a pack as well, because I'm thinking it would be nice for my ancient Egypt kind of journal, because it's got that, you know, papyrusy, aged sort of feel to it. But you can get some on Amazon. So any of these bits and pieces, actually, I've bought some of the, well, quite a few of the bits and pieces I've bought off of Amazon over like the last 6 or 7 years. If I can still find them on there, I will link them for you as well, in case you want to get hold of any of them. Or obviously just looking around your house and finding bits and pieces like packaging from a box is going to be great for printing onto. I haven't tried the craft one yet. I think it does feel a bit stronger actually than the regular white tissue, but you do have to be a little bit careful with the white tissue, because it is very like, it will absorb a lot. So if you've put lots of paint onto your plate, it might be quite difficult for you to pull it off if you leave it on there too long and it soaks up too much. So just be a little bit careful with tissue, but I'm sure we will experiment more with tissue further down the line in more of my CRaFTi experiment videos, and I do have an alternative later down this pile as well. Then the next thing is brown paper packaging. I love jelly printing onto brown paper packaging, and you often get a couple of different types here in the UK. This one is much nicer. This is more of like an actual brown parcel paper, which you might even be able to buy on a roll as well. It's got this lovely stripy effect on it. I really like using this for Christmassy kind of things. I feel like it really goes with Christmas. And then you also have more of this very recycled looking brown paper that has got more of that craft colour on one side and then the slightly paler colour on the other side. But both of these work really nicely for jelly printing. Maybe even if you can rescue a bit that's big enough to wrap your present, you could print like some gorgeous metallic patterns onto a large piece of this as well, whether you use a smaller plate and do it in specific like spot kind of patterns over it, or whether you use a bigger plate and just randomly press it on and get a really random pattern. I think that kind of thing looks really lovely with the brown paper packaging. Then the next thing, this is something new that I have bought and not tried yet, but I've watched a lot of Elizabeth St Hilaire and Robin McClendon and Barbara from Joggles as well, and they often use rice paper. Now I always thought rice paper was that stuff that you had for cake decorating and you could eat it, but rice paper seems to mean something else these days. It's like Andy Skinner does some for Creative Expressions, and I think there was some in Jane Davenport's line as well, where it's like printed rice paper and it's basically like mulberry paper. So I presume that is what this is. But this was a Japanese rice calligraphy paper. It's definitely not the stuff that those three people that I mentioned use. Because you can't seem to get that in the UK. Even on Amazon, they don't seem to list that specific brand. But I wanted to try this and see what kind of results we would get. And actually this pack came with this really cool Sumi paintbrush as well. So I might be trying that on the Gelli Plate at some point as well. I know it's not for the Gelli Plate, but I thought it would make some cool brush marks on there. So I've got that to try, and it actually has like a smoother side and then like a rougher side, which is what those three artists kind of say, but I just don't feel like this is going to be the quality of theirs compared like to the price. This was like $6.99 or $7.99, and it came with the brush and you got like 60 sheets of it, so I don't think it's going to be as good quality as the stuff they use, but I wanted to give it a go because I've never tried it before. So I might try that later in this video. I will put that to one side as a possibility, but I definitely want to try the last thing on this list. This is layout paper. So my mum bought me a pad of this because she remembered using it at college, and she thought it was a nice lightweight kind of paper, like some people say the rice paper is. It's a lightweight but strong, tough kind of paper. It's almost like really fine dictionary or Bible book paper. So I do definitely want to give this a good go as well. So maybe I'll keep this piece out as well to try. Then this here is it's made by a brand called Carnival, and it's called Wet Strength tissue paper. And it's got a really smooth side to it and then a slightly rougher side, and it's supposed to be, it is kind of, it's easy to tear in one direction than the other, but it's supposed to be wet strength, so like even if you really wet this, it's supposed to hold its integrity more. I think that definitely does hold its integrity more than a piece of normal tissue, but it's supposed to be like if you're doing some kind of image transfer technique, or maybe you want to pull up some layers of paint from the Gelli Plate but using a transparent medium so that you can collage it on and some of the bits will disappear on it. This is a really good surface to pull that on because it's going to go transparent when you use like a wet glue to stick it down, but it's also going to be strong enough to be able to be left on the plate for everything to be able to adhere to it, for then you to be able to pull it off, because a normal craft white tissue or packaging white tissue is not going to be strong enough to do that. So this is supposed to be strong enough to do things like that. So we'll definitely be playing with that in a future episode of these CRaFTi experiments. Then this paper here I think I have done a little bit of jelly printing on this, but this is fairly new to my stash. And I wish I knew about this when I was revising organic chemistry, because the number of hexagons that I drew, it was ridiculous. But they actually make hexagonal graph paper for heterocyclic chemistry, for being able to draw all of your reaction mechanisms really easily, because you can draw your little benzene rings onto the hexagons on here. So I never knew this existed when I was at uni, but it would have been very helpful to know. But I thought it would be quite nice as like a nod to my background, you know, to use some sort of honeycomb hexagonal kind of background. It's very light printing on there, obviously because you're supposed to draw over the top of it to show your reaction mechanisms, but I think it's a nice subtle kind of pattern to jelly print onto, and something a bit different from graph paper that I love to use. Then also handwriting paper. This was from, I got this on Amazon as well. It's actually a book. It's actually bound into a book, so I just used my craft knife to cut it out rather than it being individual sheets. It was bound into a book. And you might have seen this in some of my art journals. I'll get them in a minute actually to show you how I've used some of these papers to make my art journals as well. But that's the handwriting paper. Then you can also get music paper. This was some that my mum gave me actually, that I think she got it off a friend from her art group, but they didn't want it anymore, so I've got some music manuscript paper, just the blank lines or the staves, but I haven't actually used this yet, but that's going to be really nice for printing onto as well, because you'll have something different in the background rather than just the generic graph paper or lined paper as well. I also have some of these isometric grid papers too. This one, I think this is a Silver Line, I think that's the brand, that I bought on Amazon years ago. I can't find the actual pad of this, I'm not sure where I've put it, and then I bought this more recently. Again, it's bound into a book, but different sort of scales of isometric grids as well. Great for planning out different patterns if you want to create some cool cubey kind of patterns as well, but just another nice different background for an art journal page, or for card making or collaging as well, and having the two different scales is quite nice. And this larger one that I just got has got grey lines, whereas the previous one I bought has got those gorgeous blue lines. We used to always have graph paper at school that had the blue lines. It was more this intensity, but this kind of graph paper with all the tiny little measurements on there, because I really do love graph paper. This is the stuff I normally use, which has like this vintagey kind of yellow tone to it, but if you don't like that tone, I don't always like this tone, but when it comes to graph paper, I just love this graph paper. But you can also get like the blue lined graph paper that has a white background as well, so as another alternative for graph papers. Then this, both of these actually, are printed printer papers. So they're a paper that's designed to just go through your printer, but it's already printed with a design on it. And this one is beautiful because it's double-sided and it's just like an aged vintage sheet. Again, I got this on Amazon a few years ago. But for my Egyptian art journaling, I really want to use some of this. I printed some bits and pieces onto it as well. Obviously that's still in the box that I still haven't gotten around to doing, but that might be one of these experiment kind of videos, playing with all of my Egyptian stuff. But I think this would be really lovely for jelly printing onto as well, and making a journal out of it. I have got a journal planned, I've not actually finished putting it together, but you'd have double-sided vintagey looking sort of papers for that. This was a patterned paper. I got some of my best friend Nan's craft supplies when she passed away quite a few years ago now, but I love this cloud paper. Again, it's just like a printer paper, it's single-sided, and I have used this in a few art journals to create pages as well, and then done some jelly printing on it too. So it's just a really nice different sort of way to start an art journal page if you've already got something like that on it. Also pearlescent paper. You might not think to print on pearlescent paper, but it does actually work. So you can have like a pearlescent sheen coming through a transparent colour of paint as well. You can do that kind of thing, which works really nicely. Then, before we get to the final thing, I've got books. So this one here, it's a two massive tome kind of books from my nan. I feel like she would be happy to know that I'm using some of her books. So I've pulled out a few pages, obviously starting with A. It's like I don't know if it's actually an encyclopedia, but it's not quite a dictionary. It's got all sorts of words and things in it. Maybe it is a big dictionary actually, but it's a different kind of paper. It almost feels like a finer sugar paper, so I'm wondering what this will be like on the Gelli Plate, and we'll probably do a whole episode of the experiment using book papers and things. And I also have, again, this was my nan's Oxford dictionary, so it's like a smaller, I think it's like a concise one, but this has got that really fine paper, similar to that layout paper that my mum got me the pack of. It feels very similar actually. So a nice fine sort of paper, and again with all of the definitions on, because it is a dictionary. But I was actually thinking the other day, it would be really cool if you went through some of these and picked out different definitions, like maybe there is one for craft or crafting, or for example my ancient Egyptian ones, maybe you can find ones for hieroglyphs and things like that, that you could actually put in your journal layouts as well. So I might be going through those dictionaries and picking out words like that to save for that as well. And then also I got a second-hand old heterocyclic chemistry textbook because again I thought this kind of like quite a nice nod to my chemistry degree, and this one had particularly nice paper in it that would work really nicely on the Gelli Plate. And I know it's kind of like you shouldn't cut up a textbook, but I know from experience that older editions of textbooks, and this is one from like the 60s or 70s, so it's probably got a few outdated things in it, they do go out of date. That's why they're always bringing out new editions, because they do add in new theories and discoveries and things. And I know from experience being in the library, taking out 5 editions of the same textbook and them all contradicting each other on the bit of information that you're trying to find. So, you know, a lot of this, well, probably not a lot, but a few of the bits and pieces in some of these textbooks are sort of obsolete now anyway, so I don't feel too bad about cutting one of them up. But it's going to go into my art journal and everything, so it's going to have a new lease of life. And they're really reasonable. World of Books on eBay. I think I got this textbook, it's like this thick as well. I think it was only like £2 or £3, so they're very reasonable as well. You could even turn one of them into a journal too, not just pull the pages out, but maybe pull a few pages out and actually work into a textbook too. But I just thought that was a nice thing to kind of add into my artwork. I probably wouldn't like take apart a textbook about English literature or something, because I have no interest in that, but because this has got like some of the cool little things that I used to know off by heart and now I've totally forgotten, it's quite nice to sort of bring them back in. Like this is, it's not quite a reaction mechanism, but those kind of things that I would have known off by heart, it's quite cool to sort of bring them back into your art journaling. And then this final thing, I've got a few sheets of it here. This is glassine paper. I'm sure Tim Holtz used to have glassine paper donkeys years ago. It was like brown glassine paper, and he used to crunch it up and iron it back out again, and it would give like an aged leather kind of crinkly effect. But I wanted to just try regular glassine paper, because I know a lot of people use deli paper on the Gelli Plate, but all of the places I've found have got, they're folded in half, so they'll have the line down the middle of them. And I just thought, well, I want to give it a try, and it was really reasonable. So I've got quite a few sheets of this to play with, and this is the one that I really want to have a go with and see if it picks up the paint from the Gelli Plate really nicely. Because I'm kind of thinking, you know, when you have a detailed stencil, I've got this one that I want to use, I've got a few here actually, but when you have a detailed stencil and you want to take all of this paint out because you want the bit that's underneath the stencil and you're not particularly bothered about this interior piece, I thought glassine is going to be nice to pick all of that up, so that I've then just got what's left underneath the stencil. But also this might be nice for using in your art journaling as well, or perhaps we could do some different techniques with it because it's got that translucency to it. Maybe you can make a window card and have it trapped between, you know, so different ways, maybe even the front of a shaker card actually, if it's translucent enough. So I think this is going to be quite a useful kind of paper, and I do want to experiment with this now. So I'm going to move all of this out of the way, and then I'm going to experiment with some of this, plus I wanted to try the layout paper and that rice paper as well. So I think what I'm going to do is pull out excess paint with the glassine and then pull the prints that I want with this, just to kind of see what kind of results we can get. As I said, I'm trying not to make this video too long compared to the other ones. So hopefully, you know, we'll get some fun results using the glassine paper. Okay, so first of all, I want to get a solid colour onto one of these pieces of rice paper. And I can probably do 2 pulls out of this actually, so I'm going to cut these in half so I'm not wasting it. And I'll cut this one in half whilst we're here as well. And I'm not sure if I can get 2 out of this piece of layout paper. Maybe not quite. I'll cut it more down to size though. Okay, there we go. So I want to get I'll leave the layout paper there so I know the difference between them. But I want to get a solid colour down onto the rice paper. And I'm going to do the smooth side down because that's what everyone always says when they're using rice paper. They say you put the smooth side onto the plate. So what I'm going to do is, I quite enjoyed this mixture of using the Sunrise Yellow medium fluid acrylic with the mint green to make a colour in a couple of experiment videos ago. So I'm going to actually go for a mottled effect, I think. I quite like that mottled camouflagey, tie-dye-y kind of look that you get. Okay. And I'm going to pull that off with the rice paper. So first time using rice paper. Goes down nicely. Okay, pull that off. Lifts off nicely too. Okay, that's a success so far. Then I want to go with the mint green again. As I said in a previous video, I quite like the subtle look. Someone else might want to put like a contrast of red on top of there, but I do like the subtle look, so I'm going to go with the mint and a tiny bit of mid green, which I've not used yet because I've not used any of the basic colours yet of these that I bought, and I'm going to try and mix it a little bit into a slightly more bluey minty colour almost. Okay, so it might be a little bit mottled, but I think this is going to look nice. And I want to use this stencil. These are just random stencils that I bought years ago for specifically using on my Gelli Plate because I don't like getting all of my stencils covered in paint. So I'm using the glassine to try and pick up all of the paint from between the openings of the stencil because I just want the outline of those mermaid scales. So it might not pick it all up in one go. No, not quite, but wow, that looks good. That gives a really good print though when you use that. So I'm going to take another piece and try and pull up as much of this as I can. There we go. And then, hopefully, if I pull this off and put this down, hopefully I will get, oh, I've got a wrinkle in it, uh-oh. Hopefully I'll get a subtle mermaid print on here. Yay! I love that technique. Sorry, it is a bit subtle for the camera and I've got big wrinkles going through it. But I really like this kind of look. I want to do another layer on this as well, build up a little bit more. So for this one, I'm going to do the same thing with the mint, but use a little bit more of the mid green to make it a little bit darker. Okay. And then this time I want to use this stencil, which kind of is almost like a cow pattern. I've always liked this kind of pattern. And then I want to put this on top of here. So I'm now going to use the rice paper to pull between the openings and see how good this is at pulling between the openings. See, this actually is more malleable. It goes down into the stencil a little bit more than the glassine paper does. Okay. Yeah, look at that. That looks cool. I like that. Subtle kind of layered sort of pattern, and we could even add another layer on that as well, I think. So let's move that out of the way. What should we pick this up with? Let's go on top of this glassine one, see if you can get a second print on top. See, this is just me experimenting with these new papers. I would usually do this not on camera. All of these experiment videos I would tend to do not on camera, but then I end up running out of time to actually film the video, and then I have all of these things that I've started and I never finish. So I thought these experiment videos will be good because you'll actually get to see some of the stuff that I experiment with. Okay, that's cleaned it off nicely, and we've got this nice pattern here. I probably should use a little bit more contrasty colours because you can't really see it very well on the camera. But the next one, let's go tiny bit of the mint and lots of the dark mid-green, just to make it even darker. There we go. And I'm going to roll this around. Okay, and then this time I'm going to do this stencil, and I'm going to try and just sort of press the top of this stencil and see if we just get a little bit. Yeah, that looks good. And then a little bit at the bottom as well. It's just a little bit of extra random kind of detail on there. Maybe do a little bit of this and put that there. Yeah, that looks good. So that's just a cool layered up kind of background. I might come back in with metallic on top of that actually. I'll need to hunt for metallic paint though. Let's pull this on another piece of rice paper. See how well rice paper pulls a ghost print. I think this rice paper is doing really nicely actually. Maybe it's not that much different to the expensive stuff that other people use. It seems to be pretty nice actually. There we go. So you've got that gorgeous pattern now as well. Then I want to add the mermaid back on top of here. So I'm going to pick a metallic-y colour. Going to go with one of my iridescents from Arteza. Sorry about my squeaky chair, I really need to deal with it with some WD-40. So this is called a Luscious Green, and this is one of the Arteza interference-y kind of colours. And now I've got to decide, do I want to put the actual scales from the mermaid stencil on here, or do I want to do the outline again? Maybe I'll like randomly put some of the scales on here. I'm just playing with this. I haven't actually got an idea of a project that I want to use this on or anything. I'm just having fun and playing. So I'm going to put the dirty side back down again. And then... let's just... oh yeah, I like that. Okay, I won't do it everywhere. But this rice paper does really get down into the details of a stencil really nicely. Oh, that looks nice. Then we've got a little bit of metallic on there. Sorry, it's still colour on colour. But a little bit of metallic onto there. Looks really lovely. So that's quite a nice layered print. Then let's take this one and get the rest of the stuff out of this. So you've got a little bit of mermaid scale on here now, and then we've still got the wet paint under there, which we can put onto this piece of glassine, I think. Yeah, we've got beautiful mermaid scale pattern going over the top of that now. Okay, and then I do want to try the layout paper as well. So for the layout paper, we've still got a bit of that green on there, so it might interfere, but let's go with bubblegum pink and tulip pink, and try and get a mottled kind of effect. Might need a different piece of roll-off paper as well. We'll go on to this one. Okay, a little bit too much paint. Okay, let's just pull this as a solid colour onto the layout paper, see how well this behaves on the Gelli plate. Okay, it doesn't quite pull it all off, but gives a decent pull off of the plate. That's quite nice. Let's use a bit of glassine to try and pull the rest of this off. Gets air bubbles under the glassine, that's really funny. Ooh, that pulled off quite a lot of the mermaidy colour, so maybe this is going to be a good paper for really pulling off all of the detail that's left onto a plate actually as well. Then, I am really enjoying that mermaid stencil. Maybe I want to do the mermaid design over the top of this. Let's go with that luscious green and do the mermaid design on it. Okay, let's roll this off. I don't know what this is going to turn out like. It might look awful having the green over the top of the pink, but we shall see. Because I mean they are pretty transparent, a metallic paint, but because they have that shine on them, in certain lights they give a lot of opacity because the light sort of bounces off of it. So let's see. Oh, I quite like that actually. That does look very mermaidy. Oh, I like that. Okay, that worked well. Okay, then let's use this one to pull the excess out of here. Ooh, that's quite nice. Really pulled up the excess on there. Wow, I didn't realise there was that much left on the plate. That's what I want the glassine for though, because I feel like it is really going to pull it off nicely. And then this is the rice paper. Let's just go straight onto a plain piece of rice paper and see how well a ghost design pulls up. Because when you take a stencil off the plate and you leave the paint behind, that's called a ghost print. Didn't quite take it all off, but that is nice and subtle. Very pretty. And this should go relatively translucent when you apply that with a wet glue on top of something else. Have I finished playing or do I want to do a bit more? I'm going to try pulling this with yellows. See what happens. It's not near the top. This is the mid yellow from the Meaden paints. And then I'm also going to put in a little bit of the sunrise yellow from the pastel version of the Meaden paints. And bray that out. Ooh, the mid yellow is very transparent like it says. It says it's semi-transparent on the bottle, and that is correct. Okay, what we're going to do with this? Another piece of rice paper. Let's try the rough side of the rice paper, see if it makes any difference. Maybe the rough side's more absorbent. It does work. I think it leaves a lot on the plate though, but that does work. Let's go with glassine to try and pull that off. Oops. Ooh, that really does pull that off nicely. Oh, that's nice. That's a nice one to finish on. Okay, so I hope you've enjoyed this slightly quicker sort of, well, I say slightly quicker, I think it's over half an hour still, but slightly quicker video running through lots of different papers that you can use on your Gelli plate that we will be using throughout this whole collection of CRaFTi experiment videos. There's not going to be a set number of them, I'm just going to keep adding as I think of different things, or I've probably got 6 to 8 videos worth of things already in my head, so hopefully it's going to be a nice series for you to watch. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed seeing different kinds of papers and then playing around with the glassine, the layout paper and the cheaper rice paper that I got on Amazon, and I will make sure to link them all below the video as well if you do want to get hold of any of them. Maybe you've been looking for a paper that works in the same way that you've seen one of these work, and you might be able to get it from Amazon. It will be to the UK Amazon though, but you can just take the title of it and search in the USA Amazon, or I presume there's other Amazons as well, so whichever Amazon that you use. But yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you again in the next video. Bye!